It is 6 o'clock and the Kerrville City Council is in session. At this time, Council Member Gary Cochran will lead us in prayer and the pledge.
Rise and join with me. Dear Father, and you are an awesome God. You give us so many great things. You give us life and a love for our community. You give us the ability to work together. You give us compassion, and you give us the ability to be in relationship. And Father, I pray that all these gifts that you bestow will be in this room today. We pray for all of our first responders and for our military that are serving us all over the world. And I pray that all of us can learn how to be leaders, and we pray for our leaders and teach us how to work together and to keep us moving in the direction that you would like for us to. We ask this in your name, Father. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Council, do we have any announcements of community interest tonight? Okay, we will move then to our presentations. And first one is a Citizen's Certificate of Merit.
Mayor and Council, I would ask Mr. Richard Carpenter Sr. and Richard Carpenter Jr. to come on up for me, if you would, please. On February 4th, in the evening of February 4th of this year, we had an incident where officers responded to a call that we, upon occasion, respond to within our community, and that was a call regarding a subject who was at a local business who was exhibiting behavior that would lead the business owner to believe that this individual was in crisis, was making some suicidal statements, and we responded, officers responded to that scene. While they were en route, however, this individual left the business unbeknownst to the responding officers. At that time, the situation started to develop in the parking lot. Mr. Richard Carpenter and his son were in the parking lot or in the area of that business and observed this subject earlier, before he even went into the business, creating the means for which he could harm himself. He had tied a ligature up to a section of scaffolding or a loading dock area, and immediately upon observing that, Richard's thought was, well, that's not good. Came back around and started looking for this individual who had left the scene. He then got out and went forward looking for this individual and finally found him. By all accounts, he had already placed the ligature on his neck and had put his weight down and had lost consciousness and was turning color. So in all likelihood, this individual of our community would have passed had it not been for the quick action taken by Mr. Carpenter and his son. At that time, prior to making contact, Richard and again, Richard was told by his father to contact the police department on 911 and relay information. And then Mr. Carpenter Sr. Went to the aid of this individual. So what I'd like to do here tonight is award him with the Kerrville Police Department's Certificate of Merit, the Citizen Certificate of Merit. So, and we have that here. The citation for that reads as follows. For providing immediate and unselfish assistance on the evening of February 4th, 2020 to an individual in crisis, Richard Carpenter observed a developing situation that led him to believe that a member of our community was in the process of harming himself, and without hesitation took action to intervene. Upon realizing the danger to a fellow citizen, he immediately provided for the notification of emergency response personnel and without hesitation provided aid and assistance that in all likelihood contributed to the survival of the citizen in need. Richard Carpenter's actions exemplify excellence in performance of civic responsibilities and show an unselfish devotion to his fellow man. and the community where we live. His honorable efforts are reflective of the best virtues of citizenship and are recognized by presentation of the Kerrville Police Department Citizens Certificate of Merit. I want to thank you very much for taking the action. And also, along with this, Richard Jr., coming to his dad's aid in making the emergency call, did exactly the right thing. They provided valuable information to us. The officers responded almost simultaneously to the call, but Mr. Carpenter's actions really contributed to the survival of this individual. So I'd like to give you one of our challenge points, because your actions, both of your actions, exemplified at least two of our values within the department, which is treat everyone with courtesy, dignity, and respect, and do the right thing. And he did the right thing. Trying to escape. All right.
All those pictures.
Oh,
You heard what that was about?
Okay.
Oh. Realize it was a civilian. I saw the emotions.
Congratulations. And you know what? Your father's quick thinking and his compassion made such a difference. Proud of both of you.
That's how I like to start a meeting.
Yeah, really.
A group to recognize the American Red Cross. I'd like for representatives to come up here, please. All right. Good to see you. Now, give us your name and what you do at the Red Cross.
Well, my name is Richard McAllister. I am the Division Disaster Readiness Officer for the Southwest and Rocky Mountain Division of the American Red Cross. But I live here in Kerrville, and I perform those duties from here in Kerrville, so I'm affiliated with the local Hill Country chapter of the Red Cross.
Good, good.
Yes, my name is Linda Castro, and I'm also with the American Red Cross here in Kerrville, and I am with the Latino Engagement Partnership, and as a DAD responder also.
And I'm Dee Delisandri. I'm a volunteer at our local Red Cross and also a DAT responder.
All right, good, good. Well, I have a proclamation here that I would like to read and present to you. City of Kerrville Proclamation, whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our everyday heroes, those who reach out to help their neighbors when they are in need. American Red Cross heroes are on the front lines every day. They volunteer their time, give blood, take life-saving courses, or provide financial donations to help those in need. And whereas the Hill Country chapter has been in Kerrville since 1917, we would like to remember our heroes in Kerr County who give to help people in need. They work tirelessly to help in time of disaster, when someone needs life-saving blood or the comfort of a helping hand. They install free smoke alarms. They provide round-the-clock support to members of the military, veterans, and their families, and teach life-saving classes in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. Whereas, across the country and around the world, the American Red Cross responds to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and wildfires. When an injured service member ends up in a hospital far from home, the American Red Cross offers comfort. When a hospital patient needs blood, American Red Cross blood donors help them. When a lifeguard jumps in to save a drowning child, or someone steps up to help a heart attack victim, the American Red Cross is there. And whereas we dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Now therefore, I, Bill Blackburn, Mayor of the City of Kerrville, Texas, do hereby proclaim March 2020 as American Red Cross Month. I encourage all Kerrville citizens to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, thank you. All right. We're proud of you.
Well, thank you.
You're over here, and I'll move right over here, okay. Need more red on there. All right, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And,
coming.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, Council, if we might ask to be excused, Ms. Castro and I are actually on our way to a home fire right
Oh.
now, so if you would excuse.
Home fire. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Hope everybody's okay.
If they want to be.
Makes you wonder where that home fire is.
And our other guests too.
Okay, we come now to the Visitors Citizens Forum. If you would like to speak to the council, you do need to fill out a speaker request form, and the request form must be submitted to the city secretary before the item is called or read into record. City council may not discuss or take any action on an item, and each speaker is limited to 4 minutes. So do we have any speakers tonight in the Citizens Forum?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's move then to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and can be approved in one motion unless a council member asks for separate consideration of an item. It is recommended that the city council approve the following items, which will grant the mayor or city manager the authority to take all actions necessary for each approval. Council members, do you care to pull an item?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull 4B, just to clarify some numbers with it.
All right, and I would like to pull 4A. Okay. Do you have a motion that we proceed with the vote on the other two, C and D?
I'll make a motion that we approve items 4C and 4D in the consent agenda.
Make a second.
Okay, have a motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, and it carries unanimously. Let me go ahead and take 4A. I asked to pull this because we spent time in a workshop session this afternoon looking at the overall plan, strategy plan for the paving of our streets, the where we have to, the reconstructing of streets and so forth. But I just wanted to note one thing in regard to this matter of Intermountain Slurry Seal for the 2020 Slurry Seal project in an amount of $345,150. Now that is, in terms of miles, that's lane miles, 12 lane miles. If you divide that out, and lane miles include those miles where you have more than one lane, or you may have 4 lanes on a road or whatever. But I'm just saying, when you look at that total and then you look at 12 lane miles, you realize it is really expensive to do the paving and repair work that the city does, and it's required of the city, and just in terms of quality of the community. But anyway, that was my only mention in that regard. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve item 4A.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of approving 4A, raise your hand. Okay. Okay.
And on 4B, I was just hoping that Kyle would, is Kyle here? Or someone, just clarify our numbers, that they're all okay, they just need a little clarification, if you would, please.
So, on this item, this is the Peterson Clock Tower elevator enclosure. We received 2 base bids. The base bid that we are recommending is J.K. Bernard Construction for $252,626. And there are 5 alternate items. That includes stone wainscoting, repairs on the east end of the crosswalk, repairs on the west end of the crosswalk, and then masonry repairs and cleaning. And that brings the total base bid with alternates to $348,242. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
Bobby, can you remind me what we originally had budgeted for that project? Do you know?
Yes, we originally budgeted right at $300,000. That was mainly for the base bid component. As we got into the project, we did inquire, and as far as developing a scope for the alternates, recognizing that there was some repair work, even as we were doing some of the design engineering work that was identified. In addition to, we have basically some weather infiltration on a couple ends of the building. And so we felt like while we have the crews mobilized, it makes a lot more sense to go ahead and get the work done at the same time, that we would see efficiencies with taxpayer resources if we do that work all at the same time.
I'm glad to see it. That's, to me, a real slip and fall hazard in a wet environment on both ends of that bridge. So from a liability standpoint, I think it's good time to get that done.
How long will that take? Do you know once they get started?
Yeah, we're looking at probably a 120 to 180 day project. I think the enclosure itself we're going to prioritize that work first. But some of the repair works, they're going to have to get in there and really kind of see what it's going to take to get that done.
Okay.
Of course, we've got traffic and other things to contend with. We don't
And
want to
maybe
be,
some weather.
and maybe some weather. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm good with that. I would move that we accept 4B as presented.
I'll second.
Motion second, all in favor, let it be known by the raised hands. Okay, motion passes. Now we come to ordinances, second reading. And this is, I'm gonna ask Ms. McLennan to read that in, please.
Ordinance number 2020-05, second reading. An ordinance annexing an approximate 33.56 acre tract of land located adjacent to and northwest of the intersection of State Highway 16 North and Benson Drive with the address of 2700 Fredericksburg Road into the city of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, and extending the boundary limits of the city so as to include such property within the city limits, adopting a mutual services agreement for the annexed property, and adopting zoning for the annexed property. And Mayor, we do have one citizen speaker signed up.
Okay, all right. Mr. Paxton,
As Ms. Malkanen said, this is the second reading of the annexation for the USDA campus and recommended plan development district from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
We have someone to speak to it?
Yes, sir. Brenda Hughes.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And forgive me if this was addressed in another meeting that I was not able to watch or attend. But a couple of questions have come up really that I've been approached with, and I said I would get the answers tonight. And one was what the costs were to annex this property, and then whether or not the taxpayer will be seeing any benefit in the way of property tax or sales tax revenue from this annexation. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paxton.
There is no real direct cost to the city for the annexation. Any infrastructure extensions, the USDA would be paying for those extensions as they tie onto water and sewer. And as a federal agency, they are exempt from property taxes.
But they will be
They'll be
paying,
paying for their water.
Yes. Right, they'll be paying for their water.
fee.
they're paying tap fees.
Tap fees.
They're
correct.
paying for the infrastructure to be extended onto their property.
That is correct.
Okay. Just a bit of background, and the director is here with us again tonight. But this really historic agricultural research station is expanding and will have more staff and is in expanding building and property. But this will mean some significant property tax coming to the city.
Well, sales tax.
So not
Sales.
direct-
No,
not
it's
directly
not-
from the
it's not
USDA.
property.
No, it's.
Yeah, right, okay.
But as they buy homes, live here, purchase food here, there'll be sales tax generated. It's that multiplier effect, but the USDA themselves, as a
They're
federal
exempt,
agency, does
yeah.
not pay property taxes.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think it was $54 million worth of improvements, if I'm not mistaken, and so that's 40 employees, if I remember correctly, as well. So,
How many new employees?
Around 6 at the moment.
Okay, all
okay. So,
right.
okay, maybe I was thinking further down the road. Anyway, there's a significant economic impact by you being here, so.
Okay.
And I want a tour still.
Okay,
Did that answer your question?
okay, council, any further questions?
I move that we adopt ordinance. Oh, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. That we adopt ordinance number 2020-05 on the second reading.
Second.
All right, all in favor of that motion, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay. And it passes. Okay, if you will read in ordinance number 2020-06, Ms. McLean.
Ordinance number 2020-06, second reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 102, Traffic and Vehicles, Section 102-119, by adding Pascal Avenue as a city street where through truck traffic is prohibited, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, providing a penalty, and providing other matters relating to the subject.
All right, ask Chief Knight if you would give us a little background.
Sorry I was outside. I lost track of time.
Oh, yeah.
This is the second reading of the prohibition on truck traffic on a residential street, and we are looking to add Pascal Avenue from the 600 block of Pascal Avenue to Holdsworth Drive to this ordinance. That is a residential street area. It is used for through truck traffic, and we are looking to restrict that truck traffic and put it back onto the streets that are built and designed to handle that type of volume and traffic load.
All right,
Any questions?
council, any questions?
I have the same question I had last time. Have you been in conversation with the bus company?
I did talk to the bus company, and most of their drivers, not all, but most of their drivers that are coming in off the interstate are coming in off the 16th. Their older drivers are the ones that are aware of
Of
the
the
back route
shortcut,
coming in
yeah.
off of Harper Road, and they are the ones that take that shortcut and come through. It's not necessarily a shortcut. There's not
No.
there's no distance saved. The only thing you're doing is avoiding some of the traffic control devices that are on 16. And they're aware of that, and they're aware of the ordinance, and they are going to be alerting their senior drivers in regards to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
It's a good
Okay,
move.
do we have any speakers?
No, sir.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on 2020-06?
I'll move that we pass ordinance number 2020-06 on second reading.
I'll second.
A motion second, all in favor, if you'll raise your right hand. All right, and that motion carries. Okay, we come to 6A, resolution number 04-2020. Ms. McLennan, if you'll read that.
Resolution number 04-2020, a resolution supporting the application of OPG Ridge Hill Partners LLC to construct affordable rental housing pursuant to the Low Income Housing Tax Credit, LIHTC, program administered by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs.
All right, Ms. Moser?
Good evening. OPG Ridge Hill Partners, in association with Overland Property Group, intends to submit an application to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for 2020 competitive 9% tax credits for the construction of a mixed-income multifamily housing community for seniors 62 plus, to be known as the Residence at Ridge Hill. And you may recall that council approved a resolution of support for a similar project last year on the same property. However, due to the highly competitive stakes involved with this program, the project last year did not get awarded. So we have a new developer here tonight who has put the property under contract and intends to submit the application. And so Matt Gillum is managing partner with Overland Partners, and he's here to make a presentation and explain the project to you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the time and allowing me to be here tonight. I'll start off with the bad news. I'm the reason why you did not get the project last year because my project in Canyon Lake was funded. I've had my eye on Kerrville for many years now, admired from a distance, and now we're here hoping to make an investment in the community itself. Quick background on us, because it obviously is important, extremely important. We've been doing this since 2003, 2004 when we started off doing affordable housing in our hometown. And since then, we've developed roughly 70 communities from Kansas down to Texas. And here in the state of Texas, we've been very active because the affordability is a big item that is in heavy need. We are, we'll call it a family-owned business in a way because it's myself and my business partners who we've been friends and family friends for my entire life and their entire lives. So we're very tight-knit. We do not sell our communities, which puts us in kind of a different category when it comes to development. So I'd love to walk you through some of the aspects of this particular community, but first just kind of give you an idea there of our footprint and where we've done. Everywhere from the beautiful Rocky Mountains in Colorado and Steamboat and Leadville to Western Kansas, Western Texas, and the Dallas Metroplex. And in that time, we developed a little over 3,000 apartment units again, which we've never sold a single one of. This kind of shows you our rise here, and the reason I think it's so important is we've had a lot of partnerships throughout the years, and these are people that make you do business the right way. They check you at every single turn. When I tell someone American Express has invested in my project, it means something because it means I'm doing things the right way. I'm standing behind my work. We've had a really nice gradual growth, but we're investing in communities that we believe are long-term in nature. One of the parts of the program in the state of Texas is they break the state up by regions, and they allocate, and they make one allocation per region. So last year, again, as I mentioned, we received the allocation in Region 9 in competition with the community here. That community is they have a lot of demand for senior as well in Canyon Lake. And throughout the process, again, Kerrville's kind of been on my radar for a few years. This year, I can tell you that if I receive a resolution of support tonight, we put the application in Friday, and that application package right now is sitting in first place. So if we deliver on the promises that we're making, and we will, this project will be successful, and it will be funded this year. It's sitting in first place right now. So the reason I bring that up, and it's an important one, is because this region is going to take an award, and these are not small deals. This is 60 units, roughly $11 million construction contract, and roughly a $13 million total development budget, where we do pay real estate taxes, and it's not fun, but we pay them. So one thing I want to mention, because it's really important with affordable housing, is the differences, and you get a lot of people, there's a lot of misinformation. Canyon Lake, it took me years of building relationships there to really get them to understand what it was, and once they did, they've been open arms since, and honestly, I have a couple of county commissioners whose parents are going to be moving into our communities, and that's the biggest thing that I can say is kind of a legitimizing factor for us, is making a promise and then having people see you deliver on those promises. It's the reasons why we've been able to grow our business the way we have. So specifically, I want to call attention because there's misinformation out there. This is a federally regulated program. It's administered by the state of Texas. It is absolutely nothing to do with Section 8, like Section 8. They're both called those programs. This is administered by the IRS. Section 8 is administered by HUD. They're totally different programs. Rents are not subsidized with this program. They are fixed based on your income. So if we say we're going to have 10 units at 30% of the area median income, the rent doesn't adjust based on how much income you have. It sticks at that. This being a senior community, as we all know, most seniors are on fixed income. So almost all seniors will qualify for a community like this. Again, the income maximum is 60%. It is a very competitive process, as you all well know. The community carries operating reserves, so at any point in time, something needs fixed, replaced. The community carries those reserves. If the community does not have the money because they've made a lot of reserve calls, I personally am on the hook and I write a personal check. And I have to do that for 40 years. So I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm making a 40-year commitment to be a part of this community. And my word is only as good as what I've done in the past. And there's a reason why I'm continuing to do this, because we follow through with what we say. Again, that incentive is for me with my investors to keep the community up as nice as possible and continue with that 40-year commitment. So what does affordable housing look like? Well, this is what it looks like. It looks like any other apartment complex, but probably a little nicer, because we're incentivized to build it to sustain the 40 years. So I'm putting lifetime architectural shingles on it. I'm putting as much stone on it as I can. I'm putting nice windows in it. So again, these are some affordable housing communities of ours across the country. This is in my hometown of Salina, Kansas, which is just north on Interstate 35. And this community there is 18 years old. We still operate and own it. It still is there. I have people I went to high school with that live there. I bring it up because people say, well, you tell me you're not going to sell anything, but how long have you been doing this? Well, we've been doing it 18 years, and that property is 18 years old, and it's still going. Next community is in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. It's a really nice, obviously, resort town in the mountains, and they need affordable housing just like everybody else. You don't want to pay $20 for a pizza. That will not support itself. You have to have somebody that works at the resort. So the city actually put $1 million into this project because they needed affordable housing so bad. They were not able to keep up with the needs and the demands. So we partnered with them and were able to develop this community. And again, all of these particular communities were developed using the exact same program. This is a community in Lubbock, actually, I'll call it a suburb of Lubbock and Wolford. And again, it is a multifamily community, but as you can see, very nice pool, very nice community area. That is one thing that we put a lot of time and effort into, is making sure this community has a lot of nice amenities. You're going to live there. This is your home. You should have these very nice community and amenity areas. It's especially important with senior because you're trying to make sure these people don't just sit in their units. You don't want them sitting in their apartments. You want them out in the community and interacting with other people. And that's the reason why their life expectancy is increased. And one of the reasons why I think Canyon Lake was so excited to have a community like this, because they just really don't. So again, these are just more affordable communities of ours, just trying to give you an idea of the different types of places we develop. And the reason that is so important is because I really come into a community and I look at what the demand and the need is. You guys have demand and need across the board. So I could have built multifamily, could have built senior. I personally like senior for an area like this better because of the trickle-down effects of it. You're taking someone who, maybe is living in a home because that's where they've always lived, but there's not an opportunity for them to live somewhere affordable. It doesn't exist. So by them moving out of that home and moving into senior living community, it opens up that home and you have kind of a trickle-down effect in the community with an opening. So I'll keep getting through all these beautiful pictures. I'm the son of an architect, so I'm guilty of loving good-looking buildings. But
on all these pictures you're showing us, and you're proposing 60 units, are there any of your pictures that have a similar footprint?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's my next slide.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
You're reading my mind. So again, this is 60 units, senior living, 62 years and better, $10 million construction development. 48 of these are affordable in nature, and then we do have 12 that are market rate, which means that is the going. That particular style works very, very well. When you have the two combined, it makes for a community that operates very nicely. And then you can apply housing to anybody who needs it. You don't have to say, I'm sorry, you can't live here because you don't qualify. Anybody who walks in, you can say, well, if we have an opening, we've got a place for you to live. It would be 2 stories, and rents roughly range from, I'd say more the 400 range I've got here all the way up to 1,100, which is market rate. The majority of the units price roughly $500 to $600 a month is their rent. Again, this is one single building. The reason we like that is because when you have days where, it's 50 degrees, they can walk the halls, they can be active. They're not thinking about not leaving their unit to go to the dining room or whatever it may be because they're worried about walking outside. This allows them to be more active. So this is the particular site, 160 Lehman Drive. I can kind of orientate you by the hospital, which you can see up there at the very top. This site has been cleared. We just have had an option with Harvey in the last, I think, 3 months. But we did come in, we have an option contract to purchase it, and fully intend to do that if we receive the tax credits. So this is a community in Arlington. This is a senior community. This is 126 units, which obviously we're not doing that many here. But again, I show these pictures because I want you to understand that we've got this concept really figured out, and it's through years of research and talking with residents and figuring out why things work. This is a new community in Burleson, just right outside of Dallas. And then this is pictures of communities that are probably the closest to what we're talking about developing here. You can see a similar type building. This building up there in the top left-hand corner is actually in Abilene, Texas. You guys have a little more topography than them. But very similar in the fact of you've got 35% of the building being stone, the rest of the building being hardy board, which is a cementatious hardy board. We do not put vinyl on any of our buildings. I don't believe vinyl will last more than 5 years, let alone 40 years. Picture on the top right is of an actual unit. The living rooms and the kitchens, whether it be a 1 or a 2 bedroom, are the same size. So this is obviously a very nice sized kitchen with an island, bar stool type seating in that. And then, we really concentrate, especially in this area, an outdoor livability space. So what you see in the lower left-hand corner is outdoor gathering space at the community that's covered. And then a typical bedroom size there on the lower right. This is how we currently have the development planned on that specific site. It's kind of a L shape, and then you have your community space in the middle on the first and the second floor. 24-hour on-site management. We've got kind of, I'd call it like a hotel when you walk in. You've got a lobby with soft seating. Your kitchen and your dining room is behind that. And then on the second floor, you have your community space, couches, TV, library, kind of, we have a little crafts room typically. We cater all of that specifically to the, I'll call it the personality of the community. What I like to do is furnish and build the communities to what we've seen work. And then you really tailor the last pieces of furniture and art to the specific community needs. You can have 2 communities that sit a block away from each other. And the personality of this community is totally different from this. They interact differently. They like different things. They may like happy hour. This doesn't like happy hour. They may go to bed at 8. They may go to bed at 10. So the fun thing is to really develop these and make sure you're maximizing the benefit for the people living there. These are the typical unit styles, 650 square foot for a 1-bedroom and 850 square foot for a 2-bedroom. In the senior living world, those are large units. I personally don't like developing units that are any smaller than this. And again, this is on the large side for senior. While you want them interacting in the community, you also want them feeling like this is their home, because it is. So full kitchens in these, Energy Star appliances, full-size washers and dryers. We don't do laundry rooms. I don't believe in that. I think that's wrong for seniors. So these are very efficient and very, very thoughtfully planned out units. Again, just kind of showing you more of the building architecture there. And as you can see, very similar style to the Abilene building that I've shown you. So these are the elevations that we have planned for that particular community. So I'll stop talking now and answer your questions. But I'd like to tell you on behalf of myself and my other partners, we're very excited about the opportunity to be in Kerrville. It's a place we're very excited about. As my business partner said to me earlier, there's very few places that I would move and live myself, and he said Kerrville is absolutely one of the places I would love to move and live in. So we're hoping to be part of the community and happy to answer any questions you have.
Counselor, you have questions?
I'm excited. That's a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Man, it seems to hit a home run with our housing study, and I'm excited.
Thank you.
Yeah, so great presentation.
So I did a little bit of my own due diligence, and I would reiterate what I saw in my research about your business, and it's really encouraging to see what you're saying verified in my own reaching out. So I'm excited as well. I had a question about why you chose age restricted. You've already answered that question. When are the projects announced?
Sure. So the applications go in physically this Friday. They go in, and the next week, the next round of preliminary scoring comes out, which they take everybody's scores and they put them on a big Excel spreadsheet. I can tell you based on preliminary, next week, scoring will come out and it will show us in first place. They'll start the underwriting process, which is asking for additional documentation from us. And then the formal announcement is made in July. However, I will tell you, once we go through underwriting, everybody knows who's getting the deal or not, and that's typically April, May. And so the timeline, to kind of give you an idea how this all works, we would have the funding happen in July. At that stage, we would pull the trigger with all of our architectural full engineering work. We've already done probably $50,000 worth of studies to this date, architectural engineering wise. We'll pull the trigger on all of that, and then I would hope to close and be under construction like right about this time next year. And then construction is typically 12 to 16 months, obviously depending on weather, as you guys said on another project earlier. And then, with a project like this, kind of like what we're seeing in Canyon Lake, we're framing a building in Canyon Lake, hasn't opened yet. We're getting 5 to 6 phone calls a day of people wanting to get on an interest list. So I would assume, and based on the market studies we've done, it'll be the same situation here.
And then this property is not in the city limits right now?
That's correct.
So would you be looking for voluntary annexation on that?
So I was in front of the county yesterday and received a resolution support from them.
Okay.
Again, you're right, we are in the ETJ. My attorney has, I believe, was going to reach out today. Maybe we haven't connected with your city attorney yet to kind of work through what needs to happen there. We would be looking to annex because of city services that we'll need to supply for this building. But that, with my timelines with the state, that can happen all the way till September. So what we would be doing from now until then is continue to work through this process. But our team's up to speed on the annexation and what needs to happen, and looking forward to working with your city attorney to hopefully make that happen.
And so just to clarify on the AMI, so you adjust your rents based on the data that comes out on the AMI, or you're locked in?
So I can give you my AMI range right now. We've received the market study back, and so based on that feedback, we've set the number of units we're doing at what. So we've got 4 of the units will be at 30% of the area median income. And then we've got 10 units at 50% of the area median income, and then 34 units at 60% of the area median income, and then 6 units conventional market rate, which is just basically what the market demands.
So when the AMI changes, the rents change as well?
So they come out, HUD comes out every year with new income limits, and so we have a max income limit we can be at. So for instance, on one of the 50% units, the max the max rent we can charge is $568. I have to take out a utility allowance. Basically, I am looking at what I believe the residents will pay for utilities, and I have to subtract that out of the maximum allowable rent. So it truly is affordable. So their rent then, while the maximum rent I can charge is $568, When I take the utilities out, they're really at $490. So we have to factor that in to make sure that it truly is affordable.
Very affordable seems. Let me see, let me make sure. I asked about your timeline, AMI, ETJ annexation. And also just, I looked for our 2050 plan, and this is in our strategic catalyst area 2, and this housing type fits into that, which kind of is another part of the picture. So I appreciate knowing that that's something that the community identified as a use of that land as well. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited, and I hope for the best.
I have had some questions. You had mentioned fixed rates, and you just talked now a little bit about that. So it's fixed for a year, but then it can be adjusted.
No, we actually lock into a permanent commitment on what units can be at what income level. So I can't next year change the 30% units to 60. I am locking that in with the federal government and the state.
For
40 years.
40 years?
40 years.
You're kidding.
No. My wife, I don't tell her some of these things.
40 years will fly by. Though.
That is, I mean, we need this level of rent. It's fantastic. Another question I have, all the units that you showed us, they were all flat. Every place you built was flat. This is not flat.
Well, I built in the Colorado Rocky Mountains, and one of the sites that we just developed was on a 60% grade. We had to cut in the hill and then terrace up. Well, yeah, I grew up in, the flat plains of Kansas. We're very used to it in Canyon Lake. One of our 2 sites in Canyon Lake has a 40% grade on it. And so we had to do a lot of earthwork to make that fit into it. There's obviously been some earthwork that's done to this, but one of the things that we'll spend a lot of time and effort on is making sure we're planning how this building fits. Accessibility is extremely important in our business. You can't build senior and not make it accessible. So how we have the grades, the sidewalks, having parking not be on slopes, those are all very important things that we'll be studying with our engineers and architects. So while it may not be what I normally encounter, I am used to encountering it.
Okay, because that was important. You said you were going to have a movie theater, a dining room, and a fitness center.
Correct.
Again, it just all sounds too good to be true.
I
need to move in.
It's a pretty amazing program, and it was started under the Reagan administration in 1986 in the Tax Reform Act. It is one of the most widely supported bipartisan programs because you're taking the private sector and you're incentivizing us to develop for the public. And so that partnership was one of the reasons why under the latest Trump tax cuts, this program received a 30% increase in funding. And that's really unique because if you take the senators and you take the 2 opposite sides, the furthest spectrums are all signed on to this in support. And that's pretty amazing. And there's a reason why, because it's a government program that truly works.
So is your dining room full service? I mean, breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
So what we do is do warming kitchens instead of full commercial kitchens. Food prep is a challenging part, but what we do is try to partner with local restaurants and local chefs to utilize their capacity in kitchens to bring food to ours, and then we will do a pass-through. We're not allowed to take revenue from that, so what we'll do is take that as a pass-through. So if we can buy it for $5, we'll provide it to the residents for $5. And those partnerships allow us to not be in the food business, which I don't understand anything of, and I don't really want to get into. So it kind of helps us do that. So we do warming kitchens because we're bringing food in a catering style from outside.
But that's not a requirement of a resident. They do not have
No.
to take.
They have their full kitchens in their units, and I would say when we do have food opportunities like this, which typically we do lunch and dinners to come in, I bet you our subscription rate's something like 22 to 25% at lunch, and then south of 10% for dinner. And it's because people are cooking in their units. They have a full size kitchen, but it is an opportunity and an option if they don't want to go to the grocery store, it's something that'll allow them to not leave the home.
And you put, I would assume elevators in each unit, or you have more than one?
So this particular building is what they call a congregate living building, so it's all under one roof. And again, I like that because you can walk the hallways and not have to leave, a conditioned space. So we'll have a elevator in this building. It's kind of in the central core area, goes up into the second floor.
Okay. It sounds wonderful. Can I put in my reservation?
Absolutely. We would love that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. It
You're
sounds
welcome.
great.
Thank you.
Ms. Seagram.
Yes, great presentation. You seem to have a lot of heart and soul and passion about this, which is always impressive when someone really, really cares about what they're doing. They've asked a lot of the questions I was going to ask, and one of them was about the you're totally restricted to age. You could never, let's say you're 50% occupied in 5 years. Those units still have to be reserved for a senior.
So we're making that commitment to the state, and so in our application, we're making that commitment to the state. And so we would have to, we have a land use restrictive agreement put in place on this site that determines the affordability and the age. And the only way that could ever come off is if this property were foreclosed on.
Oh.
The foreclosure rate with this product type is less than 0.001%. It's the lowest in the real estate industry. And if a property of mine ever got foreclosed on, I would be out of business. No investor would ever do business with me again.
But you must be pretty optimistic that there's enough of market out there of this age group.
So I've looked at the studies you guys have done, which those were extremely helpful. You guys knowing what your demand is very helpful for a developer taking a look and analyzing it. It makes life move quicker. But then we've also commissioned third-party market studies by outside groups that came in and told me exactly what they believe the needs are for each and every rental AMI range and how many renters are in the current market and things of that nature. So I know what the demand is and the capture rates are. And it confirmed what you guys have seen in your studies.
One more question I had was about parking. It looks like you might be short about 2 spaces. There's you have 112 possible cars, and you have 109 or 110 spaces. So probably you won't have 2 cars per unit for 100% of the units. So I assume you've got a.
So we will go through, we'll go through all of our architecture and engineering to get to the state level. They're preliminary in nature, obviously, because this is a building type that we've fine-tuned over the years. Very confident there, but the parking studies, et cetera, will get really nailed down. So if we're too short, we'll definitely have 2 more in there.
I was thinking about all that you want to put on this footprint, and I'm thinking you did really well, actually, to get the number of spaces that you have. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing Friday. When is the actual?
So it will come out next week.
Okay.
So I'll share that list with you, and if you want to share it with them. But like I said, we're sitting in the place we want to be in right now, and we believe most of the other competitors know that we're going to win, and so they've dropped out.
By the way, I qualify for the unit, Kim.
Okay,
Wish I didn't.
I think my questions have been answered, but got one more. Why do you do 9-foot ceilings?
Why?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, because spatial awareness is a big thing. So you have a 650-foot unit and you have 8-foot ceilings. It feels like it's a 400-square-foot unit. 9-foot ceilings make the unit, in my opinion, feel twice as large. I think that's a really important thing. I'm 6'3" and 8-foot ceilings. Although in my personal home I have 8-foot ceilings, and it drives me nuts, and my wife hears about it every day. But it's because you're trying to maximize the space. The additional cost to build 9-foot versus 8 is literally nothing. We've done studies on it after study on it, and there is almost no additional cost from a construction perspective because of the way subcontractors bid things. So rather than add square footage, adding ceiling height makes the space feel larger. So that's why we do 9-foot ceilings.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. Ms. McLennan, do we have speakers?
No, sir.
All right. Do I hear a motion on this matter?
I will make a motion to approve resolution number 04-2020 as presented.
I'll second. Oh, you want a
Okay.
second?
Ms.
That's fine.
Doesn't
Seigerman,
matter.
seconds. Okay, all in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. Thank you, it passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you.
Great presentation.
Okay,
Your workforce.
presentation and acceptance, I'll let you read that in.
Presentation and acceptance of the City of Kerrville's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2019. And we do have one citizen speaker signed up.
Okay,
All right, good evening. And we abbreviate that CAFR is how we say it. So if you
CAFR,
hear-
okay.
Yeah, you hear us saying CAFR, that's what we're talking about. So tonight, we're here to present the annual financial report. The city engaged BKD to audit the city and prepare the financial report. And I believe you have a presentation and a draft CAFR that you've received. And Danny Martinez, who's a managing director with BKD, is here with us tonight, and he is going to do the presentation. This is Danny.
Good evening,
good
Mr. Mayor,
evening.
City Council members. All right, from real estate development straight into the audit, I feel like I should have gone first. You guys could have had the surprise afterwards. But as Amy said, my name is Danny Martinez. I'm a managing director with BKD out of our Dallas office, and I assisted in the audit for the year ended September 30, 2019. I want to start off by saying, we're very appreciative to be the audit firm for the city of Kerrville. Amy and her team has been really helpful throughout the audit as far as providing timely information, information that ties back to, what we're auditing. So we really appreciative of that fact. In the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to kind of go through a few topics. Going to touch on, of course, the audit results. We have some required communications that we have to share in accordance with standards. Section on findings or lack thereof in your case, financial trends, and finish up with new standards that are kind of coming down, just to give you a quick update. So cutting to the chase, audit results. In this 117-page CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, there are 3 pages in there that are our auditor's opinion. And so we're giving what's a modified opinion, so that is the best opinion available. And what we're saying is that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. We give what's called reasonable assurance. The reason we say we give reasonable and not absolute assurance is because we do not look at every single transaction, right? We perform an audit on a risk-based approach depending on what we know about your organization, what we see as far as the trends. There's certain things that we look at to a deeper degree, and so that's why we provide that reasonable assurance. In addition, we give an a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. And that would be the report where you would see any findings. So we go through and we look at the design and the operating effectiveness of your controls. And that's where we would present any findings if we had any, but we have no findings reported for this year. Areas of audit emphasis. So the next thing I want to touch on is, okay, well, what do we do? What are we doing whenever we're saying we're performing an audit of your financial statements? Oftentimes it could get misconstrued. So I want to share a few things that we spent a little bit of time on this year. Of course, we can't really audit a city or any organization without understanding the transaction cycles, the business cycles that you go in through. So we evaluate all of your significant transaction cycles. So we look at how you do payroll, how you process billing for water. We look at your IT structure. We look at the overall entity-wide as far as your risk management, the tone at the top that you all have. So we gain an understanding of that, and that helps us to build our audit procedures. Another large area we look at, cash and investments. So we confirm with the third party all material balances. We also review any outstanding checks or deposits, and then we test the classifications to make sure your investments are recorded appropriately in accordance with standards. Third thing we looked at that I want to touch on tonight is your capital assets. So we've vouched your significant additions and deletions. We also tested your streets depreciation balance to reflect a change in accounting estimate. And I want to share just a quick minute or two on this. You all may have been aware that you received an updated draft of the CAFR and the presentation. And that had to do with this evaluation of the street's depreciation. So this was a determination that the city made to elect a new way, a new approved way to record the street's depreciation expense in order to be more in line with all the other cities amongst Texas. And it's also I guess maybe a more preferred, a simpler method as far as going forward for calculating your depreciation expense. Back in 2003, there were two options to pick. The city of Kerrville picked a certain option. Fast forward to now, they decided that they would like to follow the more traditional method. So we worked through the accounting for that. There are two different ways to come up with how you would kind of catch that up to make sure that you're reporting everything correctly. Not to get too deep into the accounting, but one of them is called a change of accounting principle. One of them is called a change in accounting estimate. Previously, we went through and we thought it was a change in accounting estimate. And Amy provided these documents to us a couple months back. We had our manager look at it. I myself had looked at it, and all seemed to make all of the accounting seemed to make sense. Then, as we're going through our final reviews, BKD, when we have a change like this, we send it to our national office. And our national office evaluator found something in the 2015 guidance that said, well, actually, if you're going to record it this way, this is how you would book the adjustment. So we fixed all of that, and what we provided to you all was the appropriate, accurate accounting for that transaction as a change in accounting estimate. Now, this change had no effect on any of your fund statements, no effect on any of your budget to actuals, no revenue, no cash. It was a non-cash technical accounting adjustment that could have been done two ways, and we've got it entered the correct way. So just wanted to give you all comfort and assurance that it's been through our national level review, and the way that it is presented currently is the appropriate way. Net pension liability, as members of TMRS, we reviewed the actuarial report. We test the census data, the data that you provide to TMRS to make sure that everything is reported correctly. And we also verify that all your required disclosures are there. So just a really quick high level of these are some of the bigger things we looked at, and not necessarily an all-inclusive list, but just to let you know that. Required communications, these are things that we are required to communicate to you all in accordance with standards. Any significant estimates, so anything that you're not tying down specifically to an invoice, we just want to let you know what those are. You have an allowance for your accounts receivable, your depreciable lives that we touched on there, how long your capital assets are going to last is essentially an estimate. Actuarial assumptions that go into calculating what your pension and OPEB liabilities are. When no notes about the quality of accounting principles, having any issues with that. Financial statement disclosures, if you're going to take a look at any, I would say your capital assets, your pension and OPEB, and loss contingencies would be three to take a look at. No issues about the quality of the client's accounting policies. No other documents that we provided that you are not aware of material nature to the financial statement. The second slide, I like to call this the no or the none slide. If you see no or none, that means we're good. No need to spend much time on that, but it goes into disagreements, any significant issues, any challenges, and as long as you see no or none there, we're great there. Findings. So here's where we would be reporting any findings, any control deficiencies that we identified, significant deficiencies, any non-compliance, and we are happy to report that we have none identified. That is not to say that there are not any, but we did not identify any throughout the course of our extensive audit. Financial statement trends, and really this is taking a look at a picture of October 1, 2018 to 9/30/19. That being said, the report that you're going to get from Amy next, as far as your January monthly report that you're getting, is probably a lot more timely and relevant information in regards to financial trends and things that you're going to be wanting to be concerned about as council. I would recommend, if you were wanting to look at any part of that 117-page document, the management's discussion and analysis on pages 12 through 17 provides a narrative of increases and decreases, trends from the prior year, things to be looking at going forward. So if you're going to read a section to get an understanding of the financial statement picture for fiscal year 2019, pages 12 to 17 would be it. That being said, I want to show you just a couple graphs just to give you a picture, and this is on the government-wide level, so this is everything. Your governmental funds, your business type funds. Your revenues by source, there you can see that your charges for services, primarily your water and public safety charges, is the largest at 41%. Property tax second at 23% of revenue, and sales tax at 15%. Not dissimilar to many cities throughout the state, but just to give you a brief picture there. Your government-wide expenses, so all of your expenses, public safety comes in at the highest at 27%, water 25%, and public works at 21%. A decent amount of that public works is non-cash expense, just depreciation of assets utilized within public works. Next thing to touch on quickly for TMRS, your net pension liability, you can see it's fluctuated in the last 3 years. It's a difficult standard. It came out, I believe, 5 years ago now, and it's a guess. It's what is our liability for our pension to our employees projected out 25 years. And so you have the net pension liability went from 8.1 million, dropped down to 3.9, jumped back up to 10.8. You might be saying, well, what's the issue there? What's going on? And really, the way that this evaluation is done, it's done by TMRS statewide at the end of every calendar year, and based off of investment performance at that given time. So this being 12/31/18, there is a certain portion of the a calculation of the net pension liability that comes out. What it would be important to look at here is your plan fiduciary net position. You are still above 80%. You're actually at 86.9% funded. Anything above 80, you think you're doing a good job. I'm from New Mexico, and our number for our state plan is in the 40s. So I mean, having a plan that's above 80 or 86% is great. And then lastly on that, because it's an estimate, just to show you that sensitivity analysis, if the estimate for the investment returns would have been 1% higher, you would have dropped a whole $10 million in that projected liability. So it's an estimate. The Government Accounting Standards Board is making us put something on the books, and this is how they come up with the calculation. But again, above 80% is something to be focusing on. General fund balance, want to show you all that even though your total fund balance decreased, your unassigned fund balance, the amount that's available and not necessarily restricted or committed for anything, increased. I believe it's at 8.57 million and that's as of 9/30/19. Sales tax, I want to show you your sales and use tax continues to rise, and if you even were to look from 2010 up, it's been every single year since 2010. Your sales and use tax has increased, and I believe Amy's going to share a little bit more about information about sales and use tax in her presentation. To conclude, don't want to get too deep into it, but just to let you know, there's a couple standards that are coming out. Accounting for any type of fiduciary activities, money that you're holding for any other organizations. If you had there's a chance that it could be put on the city's financial statements. Bigger 1 and 2 years for your leases. Anytime that you enter into leases, they're making us put a lot more of these leases on the books as far as showing the asset and the liability for these leases. Your city will be impacted, but not too significantly. But those are the 2 new accounting standards coming up. And with that, that is a very quick rundown of what we have to communicate, give you a little bit of flavor. Financial information, I think Amy's January will be a lot more helpful for you all, but unmodified opinion, no findings. The communication was great. We had that one issue with the accounting for streets that we got lined up correctly, and so with that, I open it up for any questions.
Okay. Council, questions?
I have some for Amy, but great presentation. I mean, I wish I had more college years in accounting.
They keep making it more confusing, unfortunately, with some of this stuff, unfortunately.
Will.
But just to repeat, the depreciation of the roads. So it's something that was changed for the first time this year. It was something that was a choice. It was something that was completely depreciated and then looked back and said it needs to be depreciated over time. Am I understanding that correctly?
So,
Is that
sure.
right?
So initially, the way that you all were accounting for it was called a modified approach, which you would not take any depreciation on your streets
right.
from 2003, but you had to do, you had to make sure that the streets were of a certain quality
Okay.
and continuing to, to updating them in order to keep that balance where
Okay.
it was. The adjustment here initially was done to kind of catch it up all in 1 year to what the useful life of the streets was going to be. So you took the years that you deemed remaining, and you were going to record all of that to catch it up this year. Well, when you're doing a change in accounting estimate, they say you're not supposed to try to catch it up. Just going forward, you're going to evaluate what is the useful life of it going forward, and you take the depreciation on a go-forward basis.
Okay.
So the depreciation will be a little bit larger in the next, especially 4 years, as it's continuing to catch up, rather than just
All at once.
lumping it all up for 1 year.
Makes sense.
I've reviewed the thing, and I would have preferred it the other way as far as just thinking about how a user would want to see it, but there is a specific rule that says, no, you catch up going forward when you have an accounting estimate, which this is.
But again, and this affects nothing on the balance sheet.
No, this is government-wide. I mean, this is nothing operationally. This is just how you calculate the depreciation going forward.
Thank you very much, and I like that report, and I'm proud of the job that our head of finance department is doing, and that has been true for a long time in this city. We have gotten good reports and clean audits, and actually we have one of our the previous finance director with us tonight, sitting on the back row over here.
Aw.
So, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, do we have any speakers?
Yes, sir. George Baruti.
Okay.
Oh, was Amy? Oh, hers is different.
George Birdie, 1616 Glen Road, and wait for your judgment till the end before you jump on me. So I'm just going to read. Comprehensive Annual, or the CAFR, is more than a financial document. It is also a document that allows every citizen to assess whether promises are being kept and the priorities of citizens remain in order. Unfortunately, highlighted within the 2019 CAFR is one such potential promise involving the city street maintenance program, as been outlined, including the purging of over $20 million of capital asset value from the city financials. The city street network is considered a capital asset, which just means the current value of the asset can be reported using a traditional depreciation method or a modified approach. In a traditional method, the initial cost of building a street would be added to the value of the entire network. The value would then be annually depreciated until the end of the useful life of the street. The modified approach allows the city to report the full value of the street network and its capital assets without depreciation, as long as the city commits to preserve the street network value with annual maintenance expense. If the city creates a pavement management system that preserves the overall pavement condition above an established minimum, then the city can forego the depreciation expense. In either accounting method, the cost of maintenance is unavoidable. However, the modified approach would be preferable because it eliminates the additional depreciation expenses, which is why in March 2004, City Council passed a resolution establishing a pavement management system, committing to use a pavement condition index, and establishing a minimum standard of index grade of 75. In each of the subsequent CAFRs, the city engineer has certified the street network condition rating anywhere from 79 to 82. In spite of the comprehensive pavement assessment report of 2016, which certified an official network condition rating of 59.7, the city engineer has certified the street network condition rating anywhere from 79 to 82 in each CAFR, so he's certifying it in the CAFR. Only after a second comprehensive pavement assessment produced an overall rating of 69 last fall, the city is now saying it is elected to change reporting methods and return to the traditional method of depreciation of capital assets. The city would have us believe that they chose the less financially favorable presentation method. However, I suspect the city was required to make this change. According to GASB 34, which authorized using the modified approach, if the city cannot maintain a pavement condition above its minimum target, then the less favorable financial approach of traditional depreciation becomes the only option available. This is not simply an obscure accounting choice. This was a three-party covenant established where the citizens expected a result The council sets standards to measure the result, and the city manager would be responsible for accomplishing the result. This change in accounting method appears to be a choice, but appears not to be a choice, but a punishment to the city for not maintaining its part of the covenant. As long as the resolution of 2004 has not been rescinded, then the 2004 street maintenance policy is still the current will of the people. Will this council show leadership to hold the city accountable to implement the people's policies? Or will this just be another occurrence similar to the sign ordinance change, the city boards created by the mayor, or even regular council meeting times, where you choose to modify the policy to fit the method of implementation, rather than adjusting the implementation methods to fit the policy? Thanks.
Okay, do we have any other speakers?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Then, are you gonna present the CAFR, or it's just?
I'll be presenting the January financial statements next, but there is.
You have to accept, we need to accept the report.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to accept the CAFR? And I've got a few questions before we finish on that.
I will move that we accept the City of Kerrville's comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2018.
Okay. Do I hear a 2nd
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion, second. Okay, before we go to that,
We need to, can we amend the motion, when it's time to do so to the 2019 fiscal year ending 2019?
Yeah, I thought that looked.
Oh, it is,
It
isn't
should
it?
say
That's right, it should be
September 30th.
yeah, okay. So we're amending the motion to 2019.
2019.
Okay, all right. Ms. Dozier, in the CAFR, on page 23, the first column on the general fund, down at the bottom it says unassigned 8,577, no, 8,577,240. What is that?
Okay, unassigned fund balance. You can think of it kind of like a savings account, but basically over time, when there have been years that we had more revenue than expense, that difference between the revenue and expense becomes fund balance. And in government accounting, a lot of times fund balance is restricted for certain uses. If someone donates money to the library, that has to be used for the library, that kind of thing. When it says unassigned fund balance, that means that there are no restrictions on it. So we could use it in whatever way we need to use it. And that is an important number to note because that is something that that we try to maintain between at least 15 to 25% of operating expenditures as unassigned fund balance in the general fund. And this year, the fiscal year 2019 CAFR, we're at 30.5% of general fund operating expenditures as unassigned fund balance. So you can think of it kind of like, almost 3 months worth of savings is the idea there. Does that make sense?
Right. Okay, on page 90, the net position by component, 2018 is 149,428, and then 2019 it goes down 127 to 612. Now that's related to street depreciation, right?
Yes, and there was an updated CAFR sent out this morning, and as Danny described, there was a little bit of a change in the way that we are recording the depreciation related to streets. We initially were trying to do one catch-up adjustment, but that national level BKD reviewer has told us, no, you actually need to record that over time, over a few years and not all at once. So now we're looking at 149 compared to 142 in the latest draft. But that decrease is related to our election to start depreciating streets so that we're in line with other cities who, BKD has told us this for a while now, that we're their only client that uses this modified approach, and that all the other cities use a traditional approach where you capitalize something and depreciate it over its useful life. And back in 2003, it used to be that cities did not even put their assets on their books, so there were no capital assets reported for streets. And the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB, issued a pronouncement and said, okay, cities, you need to put these assets on your books and come up with a way to value them. And, you know, of course, it was a big estimate, I think, by everyone at the time to try to value streets that, you know, had been around for years but never capitalized. So cities put those assets on their books, and at that time they said, okay, you have the option to depreciate it, just like a regular capital asset, or to use this modified approach and not depreciate it. And I think at that time, because this was a very new thing, for whatever reason, the city at that time said, okay, I think we want to try the modified approach, not knowing that that was going to become, you know, that we were going to be an outlier by doing that, and that every other city would be using the traditional approach. But as it's evolved over time, we've been able to see that yeah, all the other cities use the traditional approach, and we're an outlier by using the modified approach. But I think that that our council has shown great leadership as far as your commitment to funding and maintaining streets, and that was definitely evidenced by the debt that was issued this past year specifically for streets. And then as well as, I know Mr. McDaniel has slides that you've probably seen at the Economic Summit or State of the City, just about the amount of funding increases that we've seen over the last 10 years for street maintenance funding. And so those are certainly the things that you want to look at to see if streets are being maintained and prioritized. And this is a theoretical accounting concept, but by changing to this concept, we're in line with other cities, so that should make us more comparable to other cities. And then also, all of our other assets, we capitalize and depreciate. So it's making it a little bit easier for us administratively, because right now we have to say, okay, well, this asset we account for this way, but this asset we account for this way. And now we can just say, okay, we're accounting for all of them the same way, and it's a traditional approach of capitalizing and depreciating over the useful life of an asset.
Okay, one more, and this is not a question, just an observation, but when you look at, on page 104, taxable sales by category, you look at 2018, and you're looking at 72,163,305, and then you look at 2019, it's 34,217,832, and that's rather shocking. But that didn't include the second and I mean the third and fourth quarter, right?
Yes, that's an important thing to note. So you'll see those asterisks up at the top next to the 2019 year. So these are sales taxes by category, and it is interesting information to see what are our largest categories, and the mayor was referring to the manufacturing category there. And if you don't read real close, and especially over on the where the asterisks are described on the page on the left-hand side, you might think that there's been a significant decline in sales tax by category, but it's actually just that the 2019 numbers only represent 2 quarters, only 6 months of the year.
Okay, all right. Okay, do we got a motion second on the, in regard to the report?
Amended, yes.
Okay, all in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay, and now, and it passes unanimously. Now we go to the financial update.
All right. So now we get into our more recent financial results. So this is for the month ended January 31st. And we're going to start with the general fund. Year to date, through the end of January, the general fund has received revenue of $13.9 million compared to expense of $8.8 million. That's typical this time of year because our property taxes are due by the end of January, so we get that revenue early and then have expense the rest of the year. On the revenue side, property tax continues to come in pretty much as expected. There's a little bit of a timing difference this year compared to last year, so it looks like this year our property tax collections are much better than they were last year. But for whatever reason, the county has received, processed, and remitted their payments to the city a little bit quicker this year. But when you look at things through mid-February and account for those payments, that a lot of them that come in right at the end, we're real close to where we were last year. So as of mid-February, there was 7% of taxes that were uncollected this year compared to 6.7 in 2019. So you see a big difference right at the end of January, but it's just kind of a couple of weeks timing there. Sales tax. So sales tax is one of our other big revenue sources that we always talk about. Continues to track very close to budget, and we continue to see strong performance in retail and food service categories. And I think you've seen recently that in February, you'll hear about this a little more next month, but in February we received sales tax that represents December sales, and that was our largest monthly sales tax payment that the city's ever received. So we continue to see good trends there, and up a little over 5% this year compared to last year. On the expenditure side for the general fund, so expenditures are a little bit lower than budget. We have some vacancies in several departments, notably police and parks. And then maintenance expenditures are always kind of difficult to know when they're going to occur. So we try to estimate which months maintenance will happen in, but we don't always get that exactly right. But those are the areas that we're seeing some savings from our budgeted level. On the water fund side, happy to report revenues of $4.3 million compared to expenditures of $4.4 million. And specifically water fund revenues, water and sewer revenues are tracking very close to budget, significantly higher than the previous year. We've had much more normal rainfall, and then we've also changed our rate structure, and things seem to be working well there. On the expenditure side, on the water fund, we are coming in lower than budget right now. We also have some vacancies there, and we also have some savings on the maintenance and supply expenditures. Once again, on maintenance and supplies, we try to estimate the timing of those, but we don't always get that exactly right, so those could be coming later in the year. Moving on to other funds, the Development Services Fund, through the end of January, had received revenues of $534,000 compared to expenditures of $263,000. In January, we received some large building permit fees related to HEB. Continue to see really strong fees in this fund this year, as evidenced by all the development around town. And moving on to the Golf Fund, year to date through the end of January, revenue of $242,000 compared to expenditures of $298,000. Seeing higher revenues there that compared to last year that appear to be weather related, a lot of bad weather days last year. And on the Hotel Occupancy Fund, we have received revenues of $417,000 compared to expenditures of $328,000. And if you look at comparison to last year, it looks like we've spent a lot more money last year than this year, but that just relates to the timing of a quarterly payment to KEDC that, to the Convention and Visitors Bureau that had happened in January of 2019, but February of 2020. And then I wanted to mention a few things about sales tax. As Danny mentioned, sales tax is, one of our largest revenue sources, and it's something we always look at. And it's something that you may have seen some press on lately in newspapers around in Kerrville and around the state. There's been several changes. So it kind of goes back to June of 2018 with a Supreme Court decision called South Dakota versus Wayfair. You may have heard about that. The Supreme Court actually got involved in a sales tax decision, and this was a sales tax decision about whether or not internet retailers needed to be collecting sales tax. You probably remember when you used to order things from Amazon and you didn't have to pay sales tax. The Supreme Court decision stepped in and said, no, actually internet retailers do need to be collecting and remitting sales tax. And the Supreme Court was involved in this one because it was interstate, so between states. Then the Texas legislature got involved as well. And so the Texas legislature in 2019 passed a couple of bills. And one of them is a bill that requires marketplace sellers to collect sales tax. And once again, you may be most familiar with this through Amazon. So sometimes when you buy something on Amazon, you're buying directly from Amazon, and sometimes you're buying from what they call a marketplace seller, an individual seller that sells on their site. So the Texas legislature passed a bill that said for these marketplace sellers, Amazon's responsible for collecting the sales tax for those. So even though you're not buying directly from Amazon because it's through their marketplace, they need to collect the sales tax. The legislature also passed another bill that says can be a very difficult thing for internet retailers to know what the local sales tax rate is in every jurisdiction and keep up with that. And so our comptroller recommended this, and the legislature passed it, an option to give internet retailers a simplified single rate of 1.75% for local sales tax. We actually have a 2% local sales tax right now, 0.5 cent to the county, 0.5 cent to the EIC, and 1 cent to the city. But not all cities have the same local sales tax rate. So Texas has said, you don't have internet retailers, you don't have to find out what every single city has as their different rates. You can just remit one rate for local sales tax. It's going to be 1.75%. Comptroller gets that money, and then they allocate it out to the city and the county and the EIC on a percentage basis.
So you're saying if we are internet purchasing and they're using the location where the purchase is made, and then that money is returned to the community?
Yes. It's destination based especially for those out of state retailers, and it gets a little more complicated than that, but if you're purchasing from out of state, it's destination based. So the city of Kerrville would get sales tax if you're having your package delivered to Kerrville. But a few more changes, and this gets into a little bit more complexity. So that covers kind of the usual Amazon kind of internet sales tax. But the comptroller has just in January proposed some changes to the Texas Administrative Code. And these are changes that we needed to look at for our community specifically to see if they would have an impact on us. Because the comptroller is trying to go more towards that destination-based sales tax. So wherever the package is delivered, they get the sales tax. But that can present some issues for different communities because for us, we have a large company, James Avery, that has a lot of internet orders, and the city of Kerrville gets the sales tax for James Avery's internet orders. And the Texas Comptroller proposed these changes to the administrative code. What I'm told is it was specifically targeting a couple of cities, Round Rock and San Marcos. There are cities out there who have 380 agreements, economic development agreements in place related to internet sales tax. So for example, Round Rock gets the sales tax for all Dell internet orders, and San Marcos gets the sales tax for all Best Buy internet orders. And then they have this 380 agreement in place where they rebate a large portion of that sales tax back to Dell or Best Buy. And like, for example, with Best Buy, there's a call center in San Marcos, but the orders aren't fulfilled there. Nothing is manufactured there. There's just a call center there. And so the comptroller is proposing that that in situations like that, the money's not going to go to Round Rock and San Marcos because there's a call center there. Instead, it's going to go to where the package is actually delivered. And so the comptroller is proposing tightening the rules on who gets the sales tax. However, for James Avery, because the goods are manufactured here, because there's a retail presence here, and because the internet orders are actually fulfilled out of Kerrville, we meet all the more stringent requirements that the comptroller is proposing, so that the city of Kerrville would still get the James Avery online sales tax for online orders. The only exception, which this is already in place at this time, is when you order something online through James Avery, you have the option of picking up at a store. And so if you choose to pick it up at a store, that store gets that sale, and that, you know, the city that the store is located in gets the sale. That's how it is currently, so there wouldn't be any change there. So anyway, I just wanted to bring y'all up to speed on that. It's kind of complex, but there's a lot of press about it, and towns that have, you know, manufacturers and fulfillment facilities have definitely been worried about, will things change for us? We actually were able to get an attorney from TML to send us an email saying, yes, James Avery meets all these criteria. And so TML, not the comptroller, but still, it was good to hear and get that assurance that we shouldn't see changes in Kerrville.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the update. Do we have any future items for the agenda?
I have one. We're gonna do the zoning reviews, and for coming up, and I'd also like to put in place a 6-month review on, well, it doesn't have to be 6 months, but a review on the sign ordinance to make sure the zoning and the signs and all the things that we have put in place are following their intended purposes.
Okay, all right. Follow up on zoning and on the sign ordinance. Okay.
Maybe I can comment on that. So the staff met today on the zoning code, and that's coming up on an agenda soon. We've got some tweaks that we want to recommend to you, so no problem in adding the sign code to that. Probably
Okay.
It won't be the same time. It'll be a follow-on activity.
All right, okay, good, thank you. Okay, do I hear a motion to go into executive session, under section 551.074?
Also move.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, raise a hand. Okay. We have one item. We'll go into executive session related to the K-Pub trustees, and then we'll be back and wrap it up. We're back in session at 7:58. Do I hear a motion on item 9A?
Mr. Mayor, I am prepared to make a motion. I'd like to say before that this has probably been one of the hardest decisions we have made when it comes to appointing people to a position on a committee. We had 3 absolute excellent people who have put their application in, and we just wish we had 3 positions. But we did not, and so I would like to make a motion to nominate Larry Howard to the K-Pub board.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, if you'd let it be known by the raised hands. Okay, and it passes unanimously. 7:59, we are adjourned.